Hello, social work students. I am Dr. Anthony Estreet, CEO for the National Association of Social Workers. I am pleased to welcome you to Student Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill. I want to wish you a happy Social Work Month and thank you for your ongoing commitment to the social work profession. As I finish my first month in this role, I cannot be more excited and hopeful about the future of the profession. This year's theme is Social Work Breaks Barriers. As you are engaged in advocacy, I want you to reflect on how you break barriers, how the work you do every single day impacts the lives of others. One thing I constantly say is that social workers are everywhere, from Congress, schools, community organizations, government, big tech, and many more diverse locations. I want you all to continue to be proud social work students, to continue to advocate for those we serve and yourselves. As the largest association of professional social workers in the country, NASW is proud to advocate on behalf of the profession. Some of the priority areas for me as CEO is social work pay equity, licensure portability, and ongoing advocacy around social justice issues. We as social workers must build coalitions to come together to strengthen our political advocacy and action. Your involvement today demonstrates your commitment to the social work profession and the clients we serve. I am optimistic that as social workers, we are able to find solutions to many of the challenges that we see impacting society today. My hope is that we can continue to grow stronger together. I trust that you will have a valuable experience in your advocacy activities and also take time to renew your energy and motivation to continue this work. In closing, I want to thank you again for your ongoing and unwavering commitment to social work. This is truly hard work, and I celebrate you all during Social Work Month and every month after. Happy Social Work Month and happy Advocacy Day.
Good morning and welcome to Student Advocacy Day 2023. We are so excited to have you all here today. We have an amazing program planned for you. I'll walk through it in just a moment, but first I just want to express our gratitude for you being here, and to express how excited we are to have a group of students, a group of practitioners, just a group of social workers and advocates here who are excited about advocacy, who want to be exposed to advocacy, who want to learn and be equipped to advocate, and want to be inspired to advocate as well. In just a moment, we're going to have welcomes from Congresswoman Barbara Lee. We're going to have an address from Dr. Vahak Ghali, the CEO of CSWE. And we're going to hear from Dr. Charles Lewis, the director of the Congressional Research Institute for Social Work and Policy. And throughout the day, we're going to have a list of amazing speakers. We have Brian Romero, we have Justin Hodge, and we have a whole slew of amazing speakers throughout our breakout session. So let me very quickly, if you're just logging in, explain how the day is going to go. We're going to start our morning together on the main stage in Hopin. We're going to hear from some amazing speakers. We're going to have our keynote from Justin Hodge. We're going to move into our Advocacy 101 session with Brian Romero. And then we're going to have a working lunch where we have an opportunity to network with each other. And then in the afternoon, we're going to move into our breakout sessions. We have our advocacy breakout sessions, our social policy lectures, and then our office hours. In the afternoon, we have the opportunity for you to apply what you're learning in the morning and to speak with some very experienced practitioners in the field. So we're very excited to have you here. We're going to go ahead and get started with an introduction from the CEO of CSWE.
Aloha kako. Happy Social Work Month and happy Women's History Month. It is truly wonderful to be here. I'm Halaivalu Vakalahi, President and CEO of the Council on Social Work Education. You know, I cannot imagine a finer and more competent group of people who are grounded in core values and a code of ethics to navigate our current political climate these days than social workers. First, because of the rigorous multidimensional education that you're getting in research, in policy, in theory, in practice, practicum, you know, the art and science of social work. I spent about 25 years prior to coming to this post in academia, and I have run across people who are trying to figure out how do we apply knowledge. And to our good fortune as social workers and as social work education programs, our accredited programs allow us to take the signature pedagogy to a whole different level. So lifelong learning and a continuum. That is something that we promote as CSWE. So we're just the beginning. CSWE is your education and your accreditation piece. From there comes regulation, comes licensure with ASWB, and then of course the professional practice and career with NASW. So you're in for a great profession, a great career in social work. So in particular to CSWE, we have a new membership structure that includes every single student, every faculty, and every staff that belongs to CSWE as a member. Really easy to get on as a member. Click on membership, click on program, and join CSWE. And from there, 2 simple steps, and it's all finished, and you'll be part of CSWE. So the new membership structure actually centers students. So hopefully you'll get an opportunity to jump in, cswe.org, get your membership, and then go from there to all the resources that's available for you. Legislative collaboration. I think that's something that we take pride in terms of not just CSWE, but NASW, ASWB, all of the social work entities that come together on behalf of students and faculty and staff. Lewis and Burke, our government relations people, have been wonderful in collaborating with us on a few wins this past year and hopefully this coming year as well. SAMHSA's Minority Fellowship Program, we got an increase in that. HRSA's Behavioral Health Workforce Education Program, we're really, really excited about that. We have been engaging in very actively in terms of easing the debt burden and the cost of higher education. So of course now Pell Grant Award have come up a little bit by about $500 to about $7,395 now. And then of course we continue to engage with Congress and all of our partners, hopefully in this new 118 Congress, in really moving forward things like, or legislation like the Health Equity and Accountability Act, the School Social Workers Improving Student Success Act, the More Social Workers in Libraries Act, and the Improving Access to Mental Health Act. And in closing, I just want to say our political pipeline is in dire need of rebuilding and repopulating, and that representation really does matter, not just for politics, but for innovation, for making life better. The attacks on DEIA, which essentially an attack on our diversified workforce, and evidence show that better outcomes come as a result of a diversified workforce, it is becoming concerning. You know, we take it for granted that we're in the walls of social work education, where it's a safe space for inquiry, for debate, for expression of ideas, for self-discovery. That is being challenged, and we must protect those safe spaces so that we are able to inquire, to debate, to express ideas, and to self-discover as social work, not only social work students, but educators, but also social work professionals. So the call is very clear. Thank Chris for this wonderful event and for getting everybody together. But the call is pretty clear. We need to engage civically, whether that's your neighborhood board or school board or Congress, or join a campaign, whatever it might be. Hopefully it's not necessarily only for personal gratification, but for the greater good, for the public trust. So we need a political social work pipeline. And I think Dr. Lewis and Chris, here's your pipeline. There's wonderful social workers who are here today, social work students who are here today. So to the future, cheers.
Thank you, Dr. Farley. That was amazing. And as we get started today, I want to introduce myself. My name is Taylor. I am the lead organizer for this year's Student Advocacy Day. I am a PhD student in social welfare at the University of California, Berkeley. Have a MSW from WashU and a BSW too. So I am happy to see in the chat that we have so many social workers from across the country. If you haven't already, feel free to introduce yourself and put your school or your placement or your job in the chat. We'd love to get to know you and see where everyone's from. All right, so as we get started again, we're going to have a short video, a short introduction from Congresswoman Barbara Lee to get us kicked off.
Hello, everyone. My name is Barbara Lee, and I proudly represent California's beautiful 12th Congressional District, which includes Oakland and Berkeley and the East Bay area of Northern California. Let me begin by thanking the Congressional Research Institute for Social Work and Policy for hosting this important social work day of action on the Hill to highlight the important work of social workers that too often goes unnoticed. As chair of the Congressional Social Work Caucus and as a social worker by training myself, I want to recognize March as Social Work Month and offer my deep appreciation for the contributions social workers make across sectors, from helping families stay healthy to advocating for people-centered welfare policies. There have been many exceptional social workers to serve in Congress. People like my predecessor and mentor, the late our beloved Congressman Ron Dellums, and my dear friends, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass and former Congressman Ed Towns. I am so delighted that so many young people are pursuing careers in social work. We need you to be advocates and practitioners. The invaluable work will undoubtedly help elevate the needs and priorities of the communities that social workers serve. On behalf of the Congressional Social Work Caucus, I wish you a wonderful event and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you again so much.
All right. As we get started today, I want to bring Nevo up on the stage. Our theme this year is advocacy within reach. And what we want to impart to you is that all of you, everyone sitting in your seats at home, or if you're watching this at your placement right now, you have the power, the potential to advocate, to advance social justice. And we want to communicate that advocacy is within your reach, at your digital fingertips, and to start getting us inspired to do that. Nevo is going to introduce an artist to deliver an inspiring word for us.
Hello, everyone. So our first spoken word artist, Ademola Lewis, is a singer, poet, writer, and activist born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. He's been performing his own written work since he was 8 years old, from his performance of the Black National Anthem and The Greatest Love at Yvette Clarke's inauguration in the 7th grade, to sharing a song about his father, Abiodun Oyewole, at the Last Poets. Ademola's mission as a performer is to give voice and truth and power, a voice to truth and power and to justice. Having taught for over 7 years with organizations like Urban Ward, New York City, and various independent and charter schools, he utilizes his skills to create a conscious, critical, and creative experience for students. Currently, Ademola is a recording artist, public speaker, and performer working on his debut album.
Peace and blessings, Ademola here, and we're gonna kick this off with the pledge. If you know Abiodun Oyewole of the Last Poets, aka my father, you should know this. But if not, just listen along, and next time you'll be a part of it. I want to be what I can be, to be proud, healthy, and free. I want to say what I know to help my brothers and sisters grow. I want to feel good about me and blame no one for my misery, because I'll be strong to turn it around. I want to go up, I'm not going down. I want to do what I can do to make all my dreams come true. Remember my past, the good and bad, how I made it art, even when it was sad. I want to share whatever my gift. And when you're feeling low, I'll give you a lift. I want to live without fear and know that I'm blessed for being here. And know that you're blessed for being here. And know that we are blessed for being here. And know that we are blessed. All right. And now that we've opened it up, I'm going to do this piece that I have on this track called Brooklyn with my father on his album Gratitude. Hear the roar of a people that shatter windows with whistles. A town that's got emphasis on every word. Every word is important from the belly of kings. This city was built on kings' backbones. The bottom of Brooklyn's spine can hold every dream ever dreamt. We be the blocks and corner stores. Cure for cancer left in Arizona bottles. There's a magic that won't ever leave. Like when vocal cords connected to the soul of earth. We be the essence of roar. Like lion was a nickname. A whipped S on my Brooklyn chest isn't a tattoo. It's a scar that I wear proudly, so I'll never forget how super I am going through life as a Brooklyn man. Ashe, ashe.
Thank you for that. I hope you appreciated that, and that it can set the mood and inspire us and guide us through the rest of the day. In just a moment, I'm going to ask Dr. Charles Lewis Jr. to join us on stage to introduce himself and to talk about CRISP. Dr. Lewis is also going to introduce our keynote in just a moment, too. All right.
Good morning, Ted.
Good morning. How are you, Dr.
Can
Lewis?
you hear me now?
Yes,
I'm
I
doing
can
well,
hear you. I hope
and I
everyone
want to
else can
thank
hear you.
And I want to thank you and your team for putting together this event. And I want to thank everyone out there who have registered and are attending this Student Advocacy Day, for taking the time to be with us. The students have planned a really wonderful day. We want young social workers to be better advocates, and so hopefully today you will get information and knowledge that's going to help your advocacy to grow. And you're not going to be instantly a better advocate, maybe. Some of you maybe will, but you will get some knowledge that will set you on the path to becoming a better advocate. We are the Congressional Research Institute for Social Work and Policy, and we work on the Hill advocating for legislation that's going to help people in need, right? Our focus right now is child welfare, and we've worked very closely in the past year with former Congresswoman Karen Bass, who's now the mayor of LA. While she was in Congress, she created the Congressional Caucus on Foster Youth, and we have been working closely with them to help introduce several pieces of legislation that's going to make the lives of foster youth a lot better. We will be expanding our legislative attention to other issues as well. But today we want to focus on you. We want to focus on improving your ability to be an advocate for whatever cause that you feel is important. So I thank the students who have worked really hard over the last, I would say, almost a year, but certainly in the last 6 months and so to put together this program. And I hope that there's something that comes out of it that will inspire you and motivate you to be better advocates. And now, do you want me to introduce?
Before we introduce our keynote speaker, because you're talking about our senior leadership team, I want to honor everyone who was part of the planning process. So we're going to show a short video of our senior leadership team. And I want to thank all of our incredible team members on the senior leadership team. We were a group of students and recent graduates from across the country. And I want to thank all of our volunteers who are going to be helping out throughout the day. And of course, all of our amazing speakers. So Dr. Lewis, you'll come on after this video and introduce our keynote speaker. But first, here's a welcome from all of us.
Hi, my name is Amani Desamore. Pronouns are she, her. I went to Howard University grad school for my master's of social work. Undergrad, I went to the University of Central Florida, where I got my bachelor's in social work. I am currently working for a nonprofit in their federal advocacy department, the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. And on the senior leadership team for Student Advocacy Day, I'm a member of that, so I've been able to help out with the whole planning process of the event.
Right. So my name's Nevo Polonsky. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I graduated from the University of Michigan's School of Social Work with an MSW. On the team, one of the main things I've been leading is the advocacy programming, and then another is evaluation.
Great. I'm Ava Toomer. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a second-year MSW student at Howard University School of Social Work, and I'm also a CRISP fellow. And my role on the senior leadership team is to manage the run of show.
My name is Taylor. I use he, him pronouns. I have a bachelor's in social work from Harding University, a master's in social work from Washington University in St. Louis, and then I'm currently in the doctoral program in social welfare at University of California, Berkeley.
My name's Allison Garibay. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I went to California State University, Fresno for my bachelor's in social work. And I'm currently attending Columbia University for my master's in social work. And I serve as a senior leadership member.
My name is Marissa Danae Rodriguez Gomes. I am a social worker. I graduated from Columbia University in 2023 or 22. And what role I play on the senior leadership team, I'm the Mainstage coordinator and senior leadership team member.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace Nielsen and I am a current BSW at the University of Missouri in Columbia, but I'm about to start my MSW at the University of Washington in St. Louis in the fall. On our senior leadership team, I've been serving as one of our outreach coordinators and as well as one of our registration leads. So getting everyone registered for the conference, but also being in charge of all of our promotions and social media.
Really excited to see the Advocacy 101 session. I was a participant in the conference last year, and that wasn't a part of the conference. It was mainly just speakers. So I'm interested to see what sort of a training session around advocacy looks like.
Super looking forward to the keynote speaker in general. I think I'm really excited to hear from him, but I think specifically there's a session, an immigration session that's being led by Dr. Hussein, who's a professor at Howard, and he's such a great professor and has so much great experience. So I'm really excited to see how his session goes. And
the part of Student Advocacy Day I am most excited for is our civic engagement breakout room. I think it is so important for people to get involved, not just, in federal government, but at your local levels and at state levels.
About immigration, and that one also, is just really exciting. I also do like the environmental justice one, being from California, knowing how to recycle and compost. It's kind of like a soft spot for me.
My advice for young social workers who want to be involved with advocacy is to start where you're at. You don't have to fly to your state capital. You don't have to fly to DC. You can be involved with advocacy in your seat at home or in your classroom or in your neighborhood or community organization.
If I could have any advice, say any advice for social work students, it's just to not put yourself in a box in terms of the things that you want to do or things that you think you might want to do.
My advice for young social workers and social work students looking to get more involved in politics and government is to not be afraid to get involved at the local level or state level. Look wherever you feel you have the capacity and the comfort.
In order to practice proper social work at any level, you need to be able and willing to advocate for your clients, for communities, for yourself. And so I think it's an important skill to have. And even beyond social work, having advocacy skills allows for you and the people around you to have, your vision come forth.
And I had a professor tell me one time that social work comes from the heart. And I think that's the best way to put social work is just all the love that you can give and trying to, help out just your fellow human beings.
Advocacy means to me a personal transformation, a personal lifestyle. I think personal is political, and oftentimes we focus on really big macro interventions, like we're going to go pass a policy or we're going to go lobby some legislator. But I think it really starts internally. Advocacy being at its roots personal transformation. Advocacy is within reach for you, and that's where it's going to start.
Welcome to the 2023 CRISP Student Advocacy Day.
Happy Student Advocacy Day.
Happy Student Advocacy Day.
Can't wait to see everyone at Student Advocacy Day.
We are really excited to have as keynote speaker this year a young man whose star is rising very rapidly. Justin Hodge is a assistant clinical professor at the University of Michigan Social Work School, and he is the head of the online certificate program in political social work. But more important, he is the president of the board for the Research Institute for Social Work and Policy. So we're excited to have him to talk to you today. So I'm going to bring him on without much ado. The next voice you'll hear will be Justin Hodge.
All right, looks like I'm on. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this year's Student Advocacy Day. My name is Justin Hodge, and I'm the CRISP Board President, Clinical Assistant Professor at the University of Michigan School of Social Work, as Charles said. And I'm also the Chair of the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners. It's my honor to be here to be part of your experience today by serving as your keynote speaker. So the key message today that I want to convey to you is short and simple, and one that I expect will be reinforced throughout today's events. Social workers, all social workers, should be engaged in policy and politics. The need for social workers in this space is more important now than ever before, as assaults by our leaders on vulnerable populations and our democracy itself have become daily headlines. We need better leaders. We need leaders that will fight for policies that truly put people first. We need social workers. We need social workers working in government offices, working on political campaigns, and running for office. We need social workers to be our policymakers. To illustrate this, I want to share with you a bit about my background and the experiences that I've had that have led me to believe this. I've had a variety of different jobs since completing my MSW, but prior to becoming a professor, the bulk of my work experience had been as a clinical social worker. I worked for a community mental health system for a number of years, providing home-based child and family therapy, case management for adults and children with developmental disabilities, and crisis intervention services. I also worked to improve the partnership between my community mental health and local schools, increased access to mental health services in schools, and promoted community awareness of mental health services. Working within a community mental health system provided me with constant opportunities to observe the intersection between micro and macro social work, as political and governmental structures dictate the types of services that the agency is able to provide. So for example, budget cuts and threats of privatization by the state legislature and our previous governor in Michigan resulted in community mental health agencies having to dramatically reduce available services while serving even fewer clients. As a social worker on the ground, that I had to discharge many of my clients, some of them we didn't even have the time or opportunity to develop a clear transition plan. I was furious about what I perceived as heartlessness and a lack of understanding by our elected leaders. This experience got me to look more deeply into who has the power to make these kinds of decisions that are hugely consequential for our most vulnerable community members. It should come as no surprise to you that our elected leaders tend to be people with no mental health or social work background. Yet we're making decisions about the mental health services that I could provide and who I could serve. Once I understood this connection between direct service and policy, I knew that I would have to shift my focus to using policy and politics as a vehicle for social change. After that, I started to look for ways to get more involved in influencing policy and politics. I put time into learning about local candidates and volunteered on campaigns. I looked for ways to interface with local government to contribute my social work experience to policy decisions. Eventually, I was successful in getting appointed to serve on a commission responsible for advising my city council on social policy and investigating and mediating civil rights complaints. While I was on the commission, I also had the opportunity to draft a policy that made the city council eventually adopted the policy to call on the celebration for Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day. So despite that commission and several other boards and committees that I later served on being ones that you would expect a social worker to be a natural fit for, I repeatedly found myself being the only social worker at the table. Why is that? Why aren't more social workers engaged in political work? When I ask other social workers that, the answer I get most often is that they don't think that they have the skills or training for it. I don't think that could be further from the truth. In fact, I would go as far to say that social workers are the most qualified people to hold elected office. The ability to work with individuals from various backgrounds and with competing needs, working to find common ground between people in conflict, doing a needs assessment, and delivering quality services to meet those needs. Not only are those core interpersonal practice social work skills, but those are some of the qualities that make for an effective elected official. How about this? Organizing people to solve a common goal, empowering individuals to make change in their community, taking collective action to influence a decision maker. That sounds like community organizing to me. But those are also the duties of an elected official. So I oppose the notion that social workers don't have the skills to be in politics. Our social work training has prepared us to view people in their environment, to understand the impact of power, privilege, and oppression on people's lives, and provide the tools to fight injustice. That makes all of us uniquely qualified to not only do this work, but to do it and excel. With that in mind, I became focused on figuring out how to address this disconnect between social workers having the skills, but not seeing themselves in the space. I realized that had my MSW program put a greater emphasis on policy and politics, I would have gotten involved much earlier and I would have felt more competent to do so. This led me to the conclusion that if we want to increase the number of social workers engaged in policy and political work, we need to change social work education. From there, I began my journey from clinical social work into academia. I got my start when I had the great fortune of being offered the opportunity to teach a workshop for professional social workers on political social work. The workshop went extremely well, and I ended up being very popular, which led the school to offer me the opportunity to expand it into an online certificate program, which Charles mentioned during my introduction. From there, I was thinking, what else can I do? How can I get involved with teaching soon-to-be social work students? So when I was offered the chance to support the development of an introductory policy course and then eventually to become an adjunct instructor, I leapt at the opportunity. My successes in these efforts, which were made possible by supportive colleagues and students, ultimately is how I landed my current position as a full-time faculty member. And after years of work, I was finally in a position to impact curriculum for social work students. And now I'm the faculty co-lead for our policy and political social work pathway, which is an academic track for students that are interested in this kind of work. So during my journey into academia, in 2018, I decided to put my values to action and ran for Washtenaw County Commissioner. So given my experience working for county government, I know firsthand how powerful of a force it can be in people's lives. Our team ran on a platform of making Washtenaw County a place of opportunity for all, a place where everyone has the opportunity to thrive and be successful. From the beginning, I knew that we were facing an uphill battle. I was challenging an incumbent that had served in various elected offices for more than 3 decades. There were many people that told me that I should wait my turn and not make any waves, but I couldn't do that. Our county was and still is facing many serious issues that I felt that the incumbent had not been addressing. We were falling short, far short of my vision of a county in which everyone has the opportunity to be healthy, to build wealth, and to be safe. Of the county being a place where everyone has access to quality and affordable health care, can get a good job to provide for themselves and their loved ones, and where zip code does not determine the opportunities available to people. In spite of my team's best efforts, we struggled to get the press and the public to pay attention to the race and the issues. People just tend not to be interested in local politics and elections, which we're working to change. That added hurdle just made us work even harder, though. We knocked on even more doors to talk to more voters. We increased our activity on social media. We released concrete policy proposals. We all worked tirelessly. But life doesn't take a break for a campaign, and there were obstacles, both expected and unexpected, that were thrown in our path. We kept fighting, though, and I was committing all of the time that I had to furthering the campaign. As we waited for results on Election Day, we were hopeful. Our opponent had done next to no campaigning, relying instead on decades of name recognition. And now I wish this was the part of the story I would say all the hard work paid off, and we won, but we didn't. But after everything we had gone through, I was crushed and extremely discouraged. Then after taking a few months to reflect on the experience and get some much needed rest, I got back in action. I knew that the same issues that drove me to run in 2018 would still need to be addressed in 2020. So I continued working, building my connections in my community, and preparing to run again. So not long after I began the campaign in 2020, the incumbent announced that she would not be seeking re-election. And given how well we performed in the last cycle, most people figured that I would be the favorite to win. Additionally, the other candidates in the race were all also African-American, which meant that regardless of who won, it would be the first time in history that someone non-white would represent that district. The campaign was proceeding smoothly and our team was feeling really good. We were preparing to do our campaign kickoff fundraiser in March, in Social Work Month. But that happened to be the same week that the COVID-19 pandemic began ramping up. And as a result, we had to cancel our event and, as we found out, completely change our campaign strategy to adjust to the new reality of COVID. So despite these new obstacles, we remained optimistic and continued working to spread our message. Little did we know there was one more surprise obstacle that we would need to overcome. On the last day to file to run for office, a political rival of the incumbent that I ran against in 2018, another politician that had been in elected office for decades, withdrew from running for re-election to the office that she had been serving in to run in my race. Things suddenly changed. I now found myself in another uphill battle, just like in 2018. But unlike 2018, because of my new opponent's political maneuvering, it was viewed as an obstacle to to increase diversity among elected officials, the media and more community members took a greater interest in the race and the seat than ever before. This increased interest was a benefit to all of the candidates in the race, but there was a growing concern that it would result in my new opponent's victory as voters would split between the three African-American candidates. I knew that for us to win, we would need to run a campaign so effective that we would both overcome my new opponent's decades of name recognition, as well as the votes that we would lose to the other candidates. So we got to work. It was a long, bumpy road to Election Day with plenty of ups and downs. There were some people who had supported me prior to my new opponent entering the race that became too afraid to continue their support, and some that even shifted their support to her. We received vicious race-based attacks, and someone even burned one of my yard signs that was being displayed by a supporter, but that didn't deter us. We kept campaigning. We got that supporter an even bigger yard sign to replace the one that had been burned, and we persevered. And after candidate forums, countless virtual events, and creatively engaging voters from a distance through the pandemic, we arrived at Election Day. And again, unlike 2018, this time we won. I'm now serving in my second term as county commissioner and was elected by my colleagues to lead our board. During my time in office so far, I've been able to advance policies that promote our social work values, such as creating a countywide children's savings account program for public school students, increasing our network of community health workers, establishing a financial equity center to support low-income residents, and investing in grassroots initiatives to address community violence, and most recently, establishing a reparations advisory council. None of this has been easy, but it's been reaffirming for me to be able to see the kind of change that can occur when you elect social workers. I know that running for office is not going to be for all of you, but working to advance social justice is. We need social workers in every arena working to make change. We need dedicated clinicians working alongside their clients to create change in their lives and environments. We need community organizers empowering neighborhoods to fight for change. We need social work managers leading organizations and using resources equitably. We need social work researchers and program evaluators finding new and better ways to implement change. And of course, we need social workers making policy. Our society needs all of you in these roles and more. The greatest challenges facing our society, the most wicked problems that need to be solved, affect people at multiple levels. So we need solutions at every level. That's why all of you received training to engage at the interpersonal and community levels, to manage organizations and evaluate programs, and to engage in policy practice and advocacy. Complex problems require multifaceted solutions and keep your family and friends and coworkers and clients and those that you serve informed. I'm asking you to get engaged with our democracy and empower those to get engaged. Engagement isn't just sharing an article on Facebook or staying up late to argue with that person on the internet that you just know is wrong. It's calling your legislators, showing up to their coffee hours. It's going to your city council and county commission meetings and school board meetings and library board meetings. It's voting in every election. It's making sure that your friends and family are registered to vote, that your clients are registered, and that the organizations that you work for make voter registration a priority. And here's the big one. I'm asking you to support the people who you believe in, who will fight for change and our social work values. For you to fight for injustice wherever you see it, whether that's in interpersonal interactions or fighting macro level forces. That being said, the fight for justice can be draining. So I'm asking you to also prioritize and take care of yourself. So to be clear, I'm not asking you to do any of this alone. Lean on your family and friends and colleagues. You have the support of everyone here at this conference, so keep building those connections. And when you're ready to take these steps, and I honestly mean this, reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you all for your time today and enjoy the rest of today's events.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Student Advocacy Day 2023. My name is Ava Toomer, and I am a second-year MSW student at Howard University. I'm also a member of the organizing team who's been running the operations for today, so if you have any questions, direct them to me. Next, I'll be introducing our speaker for the Advocacy 101 session. He is someone who was brought to us by Luisa Lopez, who is the consultant for this event today and has been an incredible help. And his name is Brian Romero. So Brian Romero has extensive experience in policy, political, and community organizing work. As the Chief of Staff and Legislative Director to New York State Assembly member Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, he's her principal advisor on legislative and political affairs. During his tenure, he's assisted in leading campaigns related to the passage of legislation on maternal health, mental health, transgender rights, public transit, worker protections, election reform, and abortion access. Throughout his career, Brian has strongly advocated for healthcare access, LGBTQ rights, immigrant rights, criminal justice reform, and drug policy reform, focusing on communities impacted by HIV and AIDS. His work has involved advocacy at the city, state, and national levels, and he's been recognized by New York City Council members, the Latino Social Work Coalition and Scholarship Fund, and the City University of New York, City and State New York, and Gay City News. Bryant currently serves as co-chair of the National Association of Social Workers Political Action Committee and on the board of directors of the Latino Leadership Institute in New York. He previously served as first vice president of the New York City chapter of the National Association of Social Workers and supported the chapter's efforts to push for the ban on mental health professionals practicing conversion therapy on minors. And in 2020, he served as the president of the Stonewall Democratic Club of New York City. Brian obtained his Master's of Social Work degree from the Silberman School of Social Work at Hunter College, City University of New York, where he served as an adjunct professor teaching political advocacy at the graduate level. He currently serves as a member of the Queens Community Board 1, and in June of 2022 was elected to the Democratic State Committee membership for the 36th Assembly District in Queens, New York. We're very excited to have him speaking with us today to provide us with more education on ways in which we as social workers can participate in politics and political advocacy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luisa Lopez. I am very proudly a social worker. I have served as a consultant for the leadership team for today's Advocacy Day. So I'm very happy and excited to see so many of you engaging in the chat and enjoying the lessons and the wisdom that you're going to learn from today. It is my great honor to bring up on the stage my friend, my colleague in advocacy, my partner in crime, and this great work that we do as social workers at the legislative level, Brian Romero. You already heard his bio, his intro. I'm not gonna waste your time and tell it again. But I want you all to enjoy, listen to what he has to say. This person has been doing the work, and you are going to learn so much from him. Take it away, Brian.
Hi, everyone. Happy Student Advocacy Day. My name is Brian Romero. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm a very proud social worker, MSW from Hunter College School of Social Work here in New York State. And I'm coming live to you from Albany, the capital of New York State, where we are in the midst of budget season, fighting to ensure that we are taxing the rich, right, and increasing our revenue, that we are investing deeply in addressing climate change, that we are fighting for healthcare coverage for our undocumented New Yorkers, that we are fighting to address hunger issues and food insecurity, amongst so many other issues, housing, and many other issues that intersect with so many of our lives in every single system, right? Because social workers, we are in every single system, in every single institution that exists in our cities, in our states, and in our nation. So I am very excited to be here with you today. I will be running through a presentation of Advocacy 101. A lot of it comes from my experience having been an activist like many of you. I started off in student advocacy, advocating when I was 18 years old for marriage equality here in New York State. And you know, these events are so crucial. It means so much that you are here and learning from each other and learning from professors and learning from experts and then taking that knowledge and speaking to your elected representatives. Because who better than the young people in our country to tell our leaders what it is that you need now more than ever. So I'm happy to do my part here. I serve currently as Chief of Staff and Legislative Director to New York State Assembly Member Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, who is a fierce Latina coming from the reproductive justice space for about 15 years. And together we are fighting for a lot of the issues that I just mentioned. So I was an activist like you all. I worked in policy work for a couple of years in the nonprofit sector, particularly for people living with HIV or AIDS and the intersections of the war on drugs, as well as the need for healthcare, as well as fighting for a world that sees us just more equitably every day. Then I came over to this office where I serve in this role. So I've had the privilege of serving as faculty at Silberman School of Social Work at Hunter College, and you'll be getting a little bit of "Sí se puede." That's right, Carolina. "Sí se puede." Yes, we can, and yes, we have, and yes, we will. So with that, I'm going to present a little something here. If I could just finagle with this here. Share screen. Here we go. I'm not as good as the Ute are on tech these days, but I'm doing my best. Okay, can everyone see this? I just want a little bit of reaction on thumbs up. Perfect. Love it. So we're going to do this so that we're all looking at things together. So, and can I manage this? Here. Okay, great. All right. So, first things first. Few things. As advocates, it's important that we understand that there's a host of different things that we could work on, right? We could work on, as you might be doing today, on things related to a budget. That's right, well. You could be working on budget issues, right? That might mean that you are trying to get dollars on a host of different issues. Maybe you're trying to fight to ensure that we have more dollars to fight against climate change. Maybe you're fighting for dollars to make sure that we could get universal health care across our nation. Or if you're one of the advocates related to this advocacy day, maybe you're fighting for loan forgiveness for social workers, or to ensure that we are putting money into our mental health infrastructure, because we understand that we are at a critical crisis right now, right? That the U.S. Surgeon General has said that we have a youth mental health crisis across our country, right? So I know that NASW and many of the schools are fighting for mental health access and supports and services. So that could be something that you're fighting for today, right? So you could be advocating for budget allocations in our city, state, or national budgets. You could be working to advance legislation, right? Bills that will change systems and have better outcomes for the families and communities that you come from, right? That you live in and that you work in or that you will work in. Or sometimes we advocate for regulations changes, right? So whether it's a city agency or a state agency or a national agency, right? Like Homeland Security or the Health and Human Services Agency. Sometimes we just want to advocate to ensure that regulations related to the practice of professionals and different professionals are better, right? That they're more humane, they understand that our communities come from diverse backgrounds and need to be treated with dignity and respect. So whatever it is that you're advocating for, it is just important that you as an advocate understand what is your goal. What are you trying to accomplish by the time you leave today's advocacy day? Do you want to talk to a member of Congress or their staff and really encourage them to co-sponsor a piece of legislation, right? Do you want them to commit to supporting budgetary priorities of the social work profession, right? Or do you simply want or maybe you want all field placements to get paid for across the nation in our schools of social work. Wink, wink. So either way, know your goals. Another thing to understand is who are your targets? There are so many people in this work, right? From staff to advocates to legislators to advocacy groups to unions, you name it. There's everybody. Right? Yes, please. I see Zipporah on the field placements. I was there. either way, it is important. Yes, payment for placements. I've heard about this actually here in New York, so we could talk about it another time. Maybe you'll do a presentation someday on this. So it is important that you understand who your targets are. Now, in advocacy, we talk about primary and secondary targets. Your primary targets, it is important that you understand, are the decision makers, right? These are the folks who can give you exactly what you want. So if you want a piece of legislation to pass, right, is it the leader of a chamber, for example, in New York State, the leader of the New York State Senate or the New York State Assembly? Or if it's not someone exactly, because you can't address them, like a governor or a state legislative leader who's a primary target, who is a secondary target, right? Who can help you push that primary target to give you exactly what it is that you want? So if, say, for example, I work for Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas, right? And you were coming to meet with Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas to say, Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas, we want you to co-sponsor this piece of legislation. It's really important to us for X, Y, Z reasons. Now, she might be your primary target because she can tell you whether she will or will not co-sponsor that piece of legislation. But if she's not in the office for whatever reason, which we'll discuss, your secondary target would be a staff member, right? To really tell that person, I need you to talk to this decision maker and I need you to really press them on understanding why it is that we need for this member to co-sponsor this legislation. So know your targets. And there are some really helpful tools out there. I will pull up in a moment one of my favorite tools in advocacy, which is from Advocates for Youth. They're an awesome organization that does a lot of different advocacy. I'm going to share here this document. Here we go. So this is a perfect example of what we call a power map, right? Now, why I want you to understand this and why this is so important is because, again, we have limited time as advocates. We have limited resources. There's so many people we can meet with all day, every day. But because we are strategic advocates, because we understand that we have to use our time and our resources and our capacity and our organizations as strategically as possible, we know that we have to address certain targets within a certain time. Hunter College School of Social Work, yay! I'm seeing some shout outs in the chat. So here's a good example, right, of a power map, right? On the side, on the left, you will see the level of influence that a person has. So I would recommend for any of you all, whatever campaign you're working on, if you are working to ensure that we get our field placements paid for in our schools, who can deliver that for you, right? Is it a college president? Is it the dean of a school of social work? Is it, I'm going to get in trouble probably, is it, the head of a university, a chancellor, right? Who is that target you see up there, university president, that could give you what it is that you want, right? Those are your decision makers. Those are your primary targets. Now, along the way, on your left side, you'll see there's active participants. There's people who are taken into account when it comes to decisions. Those shouldn't be ruled out. Some people can get the attention of the decision maker, and some people are simply just not on the radar because they're not. That's okay. They haven't yet built the kind of power necessary to be on the map like that, and that is fine. Now, on the bottom side, you will see the level of support that person has, right? So on the left side, you'll see that they're a diehard ally. Now, these are the folks that, if, say, for example, we're talking about community organizing class yesterday. Awesome, so good. Then this is like a 101, and we'll go into 201 very soon. Because we want everyone to be on the same page, right, Carolina? So these folks, the bottom line, right, diehard allies, active supporters, inclines towards, inclined against, active opponents, diehard opponents. These are all important to know, right? Because if you have, for example, at the very top, you'll see the university president, a decision maker, right? We want to get them to diehard ally. Why? Because we want the decision maker to say, I really, really want to give you what you want. I want to pass this legislation with you. I want to invest this money into this program that you're fighting for, or I want to change these regulations, right, so that all these field placements are paid for. Now, yes, happy to share my slides after La Salle University. Awesome. So why this is important is because, again, you can think about 100 different people. You really want to hone down on 5 folks and map them out on something like this so that you can start to build tactics to really push them to support your ask. So let me stop sharing on this. Oh, and by the way, at the end, we'll have lots of questions, time for questions. So please, yes, we will have time for a Q&A. Please be sure to write it. Louisa was reading my mind. This is why we're such good partners. Please be sure to write down your questions as I'm moving along, and I'm happy to answer them towards the last 15 minutes. All right, and now we're back to our presentation. Awesome. So the other thing that you want to bear in mind about advocacy, and particularly we're thinking about legislative advocacy today because of the purposes of your advocacy day. Electeds always want to be reelected, right? It is just the thing that whether you are a governor, a member of Congress, a US senator, a state senator, or a state assembly member or representative, you want to be reelected. And as long as you all understand that, you can go into those meetings understanding what moves different members. So now let's think a little bit about the informal political process. And why am I going over this? Because I don't want this to be a one-off sort of situation. I could teach you the 101s of lobbying members, and that's certainly important. But because I know that you all will be advocates moving forward for the durations of your careers, right? You all really should know the processes that come even before you're in front of a legislator. So some informal political processes or considerations. When you're thinking about an issue, for example, payment of social work placements across the country, across every university, it's important to understand where is the executive on this issue. Now, by the executive, I mean, is it a mayor? Is it a governor? Is it the president of the United States? Is it the president of the college, right? Like, where is this decision maker on this issue? You might assume that they absolutely don't support it, or maybe they're sort of somewhere in the middle, or maybe they absolutely do support it, but they're just trying to find the money. Right, so understanding where these executives are on the issue is a crucial first step. Now, if, because again, we're talking about legislative advocacy, we have legislators who are pushing for these bills, right? In New York, I know that we're starting to have conversations around the potential for introducing legislation that would result in the payment of placements for social work students, right? So it's important to understand who are your champions, right? Who are the people who are holding these pieces of legislation? And what is the relationship that they have with the executive? So for example, if you have a state assembly member or a state representative, and a state senator, both of whom are pushing these pieces of legislation in your state legislature. If, say, for example, it's a bicameral body, right? There's 2 sort of chambers. Sometimes it's 1 chamber. But what is the relationship that legislator or those legislators have with the executive? Do they have a working relationship? Are they adversarial? Is that really the person that you want to be the one who holds your priority issue? The other things to think about is how popular is this bill or this idea, right? I'll give you a perfect example. We here in New York State with Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas have been pushing legislation to ensure that every single school across New York State can qualify for free breakfast and lunch for all students. Now, if I was pushing that legislation or that issue 5 years ago, it might not have been very popular because the political dynamics were different, right? We didn't understand food insecurity in the same way as we understand it today because of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? And in June of last year, the federal government ended a waiver that allowed for every school across the nation to provide free breakfast and lunch. So How popular is this bill right now? Very popular, because just a few months ago, people had this benefit and have now lost it. And so they understand the need to continue free breakfast and lunch for all students across the nation. So it's a very popular bill right now. So the political dynamics there are so ripe with the ability to push this issue. So sometimes it's also about the timing of your issue. For example, a lot of people these days are thinking about the mental health crisis, as we all should be. So if everyone is thinking more about this, again, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it might be the time for you all to advocate, as we are at the national level with NASW and others, to push for mental health services and access across our country. So, how popular is the bill? Is it the right time? These are all important things to think about. Is it risky, right? Are these sort of tough issues or very divisive issues at times, right? And maybe it's not the time to push the issue. Maybe it's time to think about something sort of en route to. So if it's not, mental health services for everyone across the state or across the country, right? Maybe it's getting one social worker and one psychologist in every school or in every district, right, to start, and then we scale our way up. So these are the sorts of things that we need to be thinking about in our advocacy so that we are preparing really robust, well thought out campaigns that are going to see success, right? Because we all want to win. Now, before the lobby day, right? Before you go into the office, and many of you will be able to do that today or sort of throughout the course of your careers, it's really important that you all think about this as any other aspect of social work. Now, what makes social workers unique? We care about the person and environment. We prioritize relationships, right? Whether it's understanding the relationship between us, the micro work, and the meso, or the micro and the macro, right? Our relationships to systems and to politics and to government. But also building these relationships with decision makers takes time, right? And you all know this, right? Because if you cold call or text someone and say, hey, do you want to go get breakfast or lunch? But they've never really known who you are, they're less probably likely to take you up on your offer. But if you have seen this person over time and say, hey, I really admire your work. I think you're doing really important things. I'd love to get a coffee or a quick lunch or something and just sort of go over some of these issues and help you understand and see what you're working on and see what are your priorities, right? So cultivating relationships is such an important and integral part of this work. Really hard when you're in the midst of it, right? Going day to day. But in the end, long term, this is what helps us become much more effective advocates. And today, right, with lobby days like the ones you're doing, could be the first step. Maybe you meet a staff member, you get their information, their email, right? Maybe you meet another advocate like you are, like interacting in the chat, right? Some of you may go on to be staff members for elected officials. Some of you may run for office, right? Some of you may go on to be the presidents of colleges, right? Where you could sort of push these decisions, and you'll want to have cultivated those relationships today that will benefit your advocacy tomorrow. So prior to lobbying, also what could be helpful with legislators is simply visiting their district offices, especially and most importantly, if you are a constituent. So if you're a constituent who is meeting with your member of Congress today, have they seen you before? Have they seen you in the district? Have they seen you around? Are you involved in the community? Are you exactly long game? Right. Let's play the long game. There are people that I met 10 years ago who know me now because I work in the legislature, and coming into the institution with those previous relationships has been so helpful for us moving forward legislation like universal school meals, right? Because they know the relationships, they know the person. And thinking about other opportunities for engagement, sometimes elected officials have town halls that you want to attend, maybe ask them questions. Maybe they have virtual town halls like our representative from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? And maybe that's a way to engage with them. Sustained communication with your elected officials is important. It's important that they know who you are. It's important that they know what you're fighting for, what you stand for, and that you're going to hold them accountable, and that you're going to pop up and you're going to show up and you're going to remind them, hey, we had that conversation, a month ago in this office, following up, really want to move this forward, right? So like all organizing, it's all based on relationships. Please consider it. Yes, that's right. Director of Community and External Affairs. Sometimes it's their constituent services liaisons, right? Sometimes it's their community affairs people, or the person who staffs the elected official, pretty much where they're going, right? And those are the people that you build relationships with. So all organizing is about relationships. Please think about your advocacy in the same way. It's about relationships. So we talked a little bit about this, but this is sort of ongoingly, right? How do we cultivate these relationships? A lot of you work for organizations. A lot of you work for different institutions. Invite these elected officials to come to your events, right? Maybe it's an annual gala that you have, or maybe it's a charity event, or maybe you're in the community and you do a drive or something, right? Maybe it's a clothing drive. Maybe it's something for a soup kitchen, right? So invite them to come to participate in your events. They like that, right? It's good for them to build with the community and get that kind of access to constituents and to members of the community. And it is good for you to have invited them and they remember that you invited them, right? And that sort of helps to build relationships. Invite them on a tour to your organization, right? So if you work for a nonprofit, maybe they want to understand the services more. So you can say, hey, what is the best time for you to come tour? Invite them to a day maybe when you're really shining. Maybe they're rolling out a program, a service, or maybe it's your weekly food distribution for the week, right? So the pantry's going, the line is around the corner, it's really active, people are being their best and brightest selves, and it really helps elected officials to understand, wow, these social workers, these advocates are really championing super important things. And I need to figure out a way to support them. How do they get their money, right? How do they stay funded? How much staffing do they have? Do they have enough staffing, right? Maybe they need more staffing. So invite them to tour the organization, have directly impacted people be able to speak to them, right? Because as social workers, we should always be working and walking alongside the communities that we serve, not in front of, not behind them, right? But side by side. So allow folks to tell their stories to these elected officials as to why these nonprofits are so important to them. And then there's roundtables, right? There's local hearings. There are town halls, right, that you want to be participating in. Show up. It's really important. And then the other thing that they'd be thinking about is like, how can you help these legislators, right? How can you help these members of Congress? How can you help the state legislators, your local legislators, right? I will tell you that as a chief of staff, we are pulled in so many directions throughout the entire day. It's hard to know it all. We just cannot. But because social workers are in every single institution and in every single system, we are experts in this work. So I have a dear friend, Emilio Tavares, who works for Hunger Free America and is their director of policy, also a social worker. And we talk often about food insecurity. We talk about SNAP. We talk about public benefits. We talk about TANF. And we brainstorm ideas on legislation. And they have been able to bring us ideas related to legislation that we have championed, like universal school meals. And that expertise has allowed us to build a really great relationship with that organization because we understand they have the expertise and they'll bring it to us. And they can count on us to move these issues forward. Sending a legislator a copy of your newsletter, always a great idea, right? It's important that they know what are the events, what's happening in the community, what are the programs and services that have rolled out, what is going on, right? What should they be abreast of? So then there's social media, right? You should be following your elected officials on Twitter or Facebook, mostly Twitter. A lot of politicos are very active on Twitter. Like some of their tweets, do a repost, give them a shout out, say good job on this, or this was really awesome, want to learn more, right? These are the things that people remember, right? Now, if your organization, like many of you, I'm sure, are doing really, really great work, right? Say, for example, again, you rolled out a program, or you rolled out a new service, or you got some money for a new department or a park or something like that, right? These are really excellent moments, and we should be celebrating them at all times. But you also want to share, and you want to invite elected officials, right? No, elected officials love cutting a ribbon, right? They love being able to shake hands, kiss some babies, all the things, right? And to participate in that joy, in that success of your organization. If they cannot make it though, which is fine because scheduling is very complicated, you could always send them a clip, right, of a newspaper or an article or something that really highlights the amazing work your organization is doing. And we look at it, right? We look at these emails, we say, wow, Hunger Free America just opened up a new office in a neighboring community, right, in a nearby district, and they're really doing good work on COVID vaccine outreach and getting to hard to reach communities, and they're really pushing for SNAP outreach and really working hard to make sure we're getting these services out in the community. Those are all good things that we want to see. So thank you notes also, right? So you've met with your legislator, and we'll talk about that meeting specifically. You've met with maybe their staff member, right? Send them a thank you. It was really great meeting with you. These were my highlights. And also I want to reiterate and summarize that this is our ask of you. Co-sponsor this bill. Fund this program. Help us change regulations so that work is easier for our social workers and for our community members. Okay. I'm anxious for your questions. Now, media is really important. If anyone has ever seen Scandal, most of it's a lie. But what is important is that the use of media is super crucial for our campaigns. If it is not relevant to the world via the media, it is simply not as relevant for legislators, because this is what they're doing each and every day, right? They're looking at headlines, they're seeing who's being covered, what are the major issues that are moving forward, what are the problems that are coming up in different localities and states, and also what are the good ideas, right? Like what are things that's happening that they want to be involved in. So always be a big consumer of media, right? Whether it's podcasts, radio, TV for sure, right? Articles. You really want to understand what's happening in the political arena. Now, if you're pushing a campaign, and we can go back to saying things like, payment for placements as a great example, right? And you want legislators to understand why they should be supporting this, why this is so important. Invite them to a legislative briefing, right? You might want to hold this at a nonprofit, somewhere in the middle of different offices, so it's a little bit more convenient. Or frankly, we've gotten so accustomed to the virtual world that you could do a virtual briefing. And what does that look like? That looks like you pick a date, you pick a time, you pick 3 experts. You say, you're going to talk about, as a student, the struggle of students economically, right? That you are working so hard in your MSW program and you're putting all your time into these field placements because you love this work. And at the same time, it is economically so difficult, right? It's just really hard to put this much time into unpaid labor, right? And then you want a professor who can give the data and say, this is what we understand about MSW students and why they need pay for their placements and how it will improve their academic achievement and how it will make them much better professionals in the arena of social work, right? And have the economic resources necessary to then go out there, do the awesome work, get their MSWs, and get even better paying jobs. Right. And then you want maybe a nonprofit executive who has thought about this, who understands the issue, understands the importance, and can speak to, one, their support for it and their ability to pay for it, but 2, also the work that they're seeing, the value of having MSW students in their placements. So, whether it's the agency or state government paying for it, whatever the ideas are that are floating, I know there's a lot sort of around the country. You just want that expertise on that panel. You hold a briefing, just sort of like we're doing now. There's a presentation that's held. And then staff members of legislators or those legislators themselves can ask questions at the end, right? How much is this going to cost? What other states are doing this? How is this best rolled out? What are some of the barriers? Really help them debunk myths, understand the issue, get expert opinion about why it's important for them to support this. And then make your ask at the end of that briefing and say, we really need you all to co-sponsor this bill. We really need you all to support this funding request to ensure we could pay our social work students in their placements in this state. And then there's inviting reporters, right, to those briefings so that they could really understand the issue really well, so that they could cover it exactly as they need to cover it in the press, right? No errors, no misunderstandings of what you're trying to do here. You can have public forums and also invite the press. And always, always, always create a list of press contacts, right? Your media list is super crucial because whether you're fighting for climate, right, whether you're fighting for healthcare, whether you're fighting for fully funding schools, whether you're fighting for housing for all, whatever the issue is, you need to know which are the reporters that cover this and which are the reporters and people that really understand this issue and can dive deep into it and report it with dignity and real integrity that honors the work and organizing that your campaigns are engaged in. So do not underestimate the press. That's a whole other level of relationship building that is really important and crucial, but will have great benefit to your campaigns. So here's some other things to think about, is like what's newsworthy these days, right? What's showing up a lot. Op-eds are always really great, right? So if you are an organizer, for example, and you really want legislators to understand an issue, whether it's food insecurity, again, climate, housing, whatever it might be, social services, write an op-ed. And then share the op-ed with these legislative offices. Often, I'll see a really good op-ed get written about an issue that describes it, explains it, and walks us through the entire issue. But then you got to share it, right? You got to make sure that every single decision maker that could co-sponsor a bill or fund a request understands this issue, and so they should all be receiving these op-eds. And then there's letter to the editor, right? In case sometimes there's an article sometimes that's not written very well, and you want to make a correction, or you want to say, I want to lend my voice to this issue. Letters to the editor are really, really important. And I'm just reading some of this. My school is social work. Good, so great. I love that. Trying to get a crisis pregnancy center removed. Yes, crisis pregnancy centers are no good. We really need more abortion clinics. We have legislation on that too, actually. I feel like Liz Warren. We got a plan for that. And we should talk more about that, Keely, because that's actually really important. Thank you for your work. Super important. So other things to think about is the issue you're fighting for time sensitive, right? How much time do you have? Do you have a whole legislative session, right? Do you have January to June? Do you have June to March, right? What is the time frame with which you're working in? Because this is really going to be important, right? Are people sort of paying attention to this right now? Or is this an idea that you're going to have to build momentum for, start to educate the press, start to educate the general public, and then you're just going to have to create a plan maybe, right? A multi-year campaign that says we're doing education for the first year. We're introducing this concept. We're saying this is what it means, right? So for example, as a little spoiler for all of you, but here in New York with Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas, we are advocating and building legislation and drafting legislation that will provide a state-funded version of SNAP for undocumented New Yorkers across the state. California has done something like this, but they've only done it for people above the age of 55. We want to ensure that any undocumented person in New York that is eligible for SNAP, right, for supplemental nutrition assistance program, right? Our best, most effective hunger relief program can be eligible for that program, right? Thank you, Bilal. I appreciate that. I'm very excited for it. It's like I'm researching it every day. So, are these the sorts of things that people are paying attention to right now? They are. Why? Because we just saw that emergency SNAP allotments have been ended in the country. So a lot of reporters and legislators and decision makers are really paying attention to the issue of food insecurity right now, because we just experienced a hunger cliff, or as others have described it, a hunger canyon, right? So a lot of attention is being paid to this right now. And if we increase the number of SNAP, right, people who are eligible for SNAP, or if we increase the amount of SNAP, different states are doing different things, that will have an incredible impact, right? So it has an imminent impact. Why? Because people are hungry right now, every day. Now, are there prominent speakers who could speak to these issues? So often, we have a bunch of legislators, which is good. We want, they're good, right? I work for one. We want them to speak to the issue. But what about parents? What about a child? What about a teacher who can tell you the story of what it's like to teach math or English or history throughout the day and hear a child's stomach growling, right? Like, picture that with me, right? That's a very different way of expressing the importance of this issue, that a legislator can do so to an extent, but they cannot tell you that story, right? So make sure that the people who are representing your campaigns, who are the faces of these campaigns, who are speaking at your press conferences, at your rallies, at your briefings, can really tell the story and really bring in the personal touch of what it means to support these campaigns, whatever they might be. So this is a hot topic. We've talked about that a little bit. Is there compelling human interest, right? So again, we can use universal school meals as a perfect example. Yes, it has compelling interest, because who can argue that we should feed hungry kids? And if you can find someone that can argue that, well, I'm sorry. But it's pretty compelling. So choosing campaigns like that, or even if you choose a campaign that you care about, what is the story? What is the narrative? What is the core message that you are pushing that makes this issue compelling to others? And all those things are really important for the media work. Now, this is part of your CSWE competencies and your MSW programs, but research is incredibly important, right? We cannot underestimate how important research is at all points in advocacy, from the beginning to the middle to the end. We are always, always, always researching, because we have to understand people, places, issues, institutions, implementation more and more as we go along. It only makes us better advocates. It only helps us understand these programs better and improve them, and therefore have real consequential impacts on the lives of people. So some of the things to research, right, as you're preparing campaigns, as you are thinking about what your goals are, what your tactics are going to be, right, who are your targets, who supports us, right? So when we started thinking about the Universal School Meals campaign, we thought, who's going to get behind us? Well, obviously teachers, right? And so if teachers, then the teachers' unions, right? Parents are going to support us. Maybe education advocacy groups, right? Hunger relief groups, right? Who understand this as being a hunger justice issue. Anti-poverty groups and institutions will support us, right? And the list went on and on and on, which is always really good. But even if it's just 3 or so individuals or groups, start there and start to build that list. It's really important. Find out those key constituencies and individuals and groups. Now, the other thing to think about is, let's connect. Yes, connect with Jennifer on staff advocacy. See, this is what these conferences are all about. Really important. Congrats to you, Jennifer. That's really awesome work. Please keep it up. I hope this is helpful to you. Now, is there energy around this issue? We talked about that a little bit, right? But like, do we have to build up energy and a buzz around the issue, or is there already an energy that we could sort of ride the wave on and expand on? Those are really important from a research perspective. Now, the other thing to think about is there active opposition to my campaign, right? So in the same way that we talked about decision makers and their varying degrees of support, are there people who oppose our campaigns, our budget requests, the regulations that we want to change? And if so, why do they oppose it? What is the real reason why they don't think these things should move forward? And how do we address those concerns that they have, if we can? How do we compromise? Maybe it's on language and we can sort of change it a little bit to make it more palatable for different groups. But really, how do we neutralize them, if possible, on these campaigns? How do we stop them from pushing back on us, which only takes up time and resources in getting the things done that we really care about getting done? And if possible, and I think always possible, is how do we move them to be a supporter of our issue, right? Getting opposers to become supporters is incredibly valuable work. Not easy work, but really valuable. Now, another example, just to make it more applicable to this work. When we started the campaign for universal school meals in New York, we did not think, or we did not know, that Republicans would be supporting us. And now I know this is all nonpartisan, so, but I'm giving you an example here. However, we learned early on that there were some members of the GOP in the state legislature that we could neutralize if they were opposing it. And, not but, and we learned there were Republicans who really, really, really wanted this to happen in their districts, because hunger is a nonpartisan issue, right? It impacts us all, regardless of whatever our ideologies are. And we were able to get some Republican members, quite a few actually, 13 at this point, to go from a level of neutrality, or just simply not supporting or opposing, but to really support it, to become co-sponsors on our bills, making it bipartisan legislation that we are saying everybody wants in our state. So it's really important to do some research on who could be opposing an issue, but potentially who could be supporting it, that is simply being neutral, that we can move along and have it as an ally on these campaigns. So, decision makers. We gotta do some research on our decision makers too, right? So for many of you who will be meeting with members of Congress, their staff, US senators, their staff, right? Who are you meeting with? If you're meeting with a legislator, make sure to do your research on them. What about past legislation? What about their priorities? What have they pushed before? What have they opposed before? What have they gotten done, right? But also, if you know the name of a staff member, LinkedIn is always a great tool that you should feel free to look at, right? Research staff members who you might be meeting with. Maybe it's, Joe Schmo is the legislative director from Representative so-and-so, and maybe they're on LinkedIn, and you can see, where did they work before, right? Do they work in the nonprofit sector? Have they worked in government before? Do they work in a union, right? What are some of the things that they've been pushing for? What do they care about? Research is really important right before meeting with whomever you're meeting across the table from. Now, who is also these decision makers' constituencies, right? Are they in New York State? Are they in Wisconsin? Are they in California? What does their congressional district look like? What does it look like demographically? What does it look like politically? What does it look like in terms of, are we talking about rural, urban, suburban, right? These are the sorts of things we want to understand. When we understand members' districts, we understand where they may or may not be on an issue, and also why they may or may not be supporting an issue, and how do we make it relevant to them so they can eventually get to a place of yes. And then on decision makers, we really want to understand, who do they trust, who do they respect, right? Is it labor unions in their district? Because maybe members of 1199 are very prevalent in their district, right? Maybe they have home care workers or health workers, or maybe it's a teachers union, right? Maybe AFT has a bunch of teachers in their district, and maybe they really listen to teachers. So maybe we want some teachers in our meetings with them. All things we should be thinking about. And then there's sort of the obvious research that I think all of us can do, which is social media. We can always scrub a member of Congress's Twitter and get a sense of what are they posting about, what do they care about, what are some of the issues happening back in the district, what are some of the political dynamics, etc. Good old Google, right, looking up their bios. And voting records are very public issues. I mean, we can look to see how a member of Congress has voted on a number of different bills. So if this is a related bill that we're meeting with them on, how they voted on this issue before, right? And that will give us a little sense of where maybe they might be. And then the other things to think about are, is this person term limited, right? Are they on their way out? Are they retiring? So they might be feeling more bold and more willing to do things that they weren't able to do before. Or maybe they have no term limits, and so they're just running for re-election pretty often, and maybe this year's an election year, and so they'll be a little bit more cautious about what they support, or they'll be a little bit more bold about what they support. So those are the sorts of things that we want to understand also as we prepare for our meetings with our decision makers, or in this case, legislators or members of Congress. Now, here comes then the planning for a meeting with elected, right? So you want to make your appointment. Be on time. I really cannot stress this enough. Our office is pretty flexible, don't tell anybody. But there are many members of the legislature who find it very disrespectful if one is not on time. So please be on time. And be flexible. They may be coming out of a meeting and they might need 5 more minutes to transition, to move documents, etc., put things in folders, organize themselves, and then be ready for you. But also do your homework. As we said before, research, 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 right? So know your legislator's record on different issues, especially if they are similar issue areas as the one that you're pushing. Know who and what area they represent, right? These are all really important things. And be prepared and be organized. So you may or may not have created lobby teams, right? So there could be a captain of a team meeting, right? You never have any legislative staff show up on time. Yeah, we're always running from thing to thing to thing, but the important thing is that you show up on time, Nicole. You are ready to go, and you are prepared, and you mean business. That is the important thing. So be prepared, be organized. If there's 2 people in this meeting, who is sort of facilitating, introducing the group or groups, right? If there's many of you, right? Who is the one that is starting off the meeting and leveling the entire meeting, right? This is the context that we're here for. This is what the issue is, 10,000 feet up in the air, and this is who we are, and this is what has brought us here today. All right, so decide who's sort of leading the meeting. And then decide who is going to be talking on what issue, what part of the meeting. Maybe there's a numbers person in your meetings, which is great. We love our numbers people. Maybe they want to talk about the data, right? Here's the statistics. Here are the top items, right? In New York State, 1 in 7 people are hungry, right? We just lost SNAP emergency allotments at the national level, which has impacted millions of households in New York State, right? And so we have a hunger crisis that is impacting majority of our students, Black and brown students, low-income students, students in rural areas. This is the context with which we're coming to you today. And this is our organization, and this is what it's fighting for, and this is the services that it does, right? And then you'll have someone want to talk about, the specifics of a piece of legislation. What does it accomplish? Who does it impact? What are the mechanics? What's the timeline on this bill, right? All those things you should be prepared to speak about. And then who is going to summarize the meeting at the end and say, we discussed these things. This is what we're asking you to do. Here's our ask. Don't ever leave a meeting without an ask. It's very important. Social workers find it hard sometimes to make asks. Do not. Practice, practice, practice. Right? Remember that you are supported by a profession of advocates and people who have been engaged in every single civil rights movement since really the dawn of time. And we should be willing and ready to make the asks necessary to bring back the resources and legislative changes necessary for our communities. So if you cannot make the ask, that is okay. Somebody else in your group may be willing to make the ask, but make the ask. In summary, Senator so-and-so, Congress member so-and-so, or chief of staff or whatever, we are asking that the principal, right, or the senator or the member of Congress co-sponsor this bill, right, and that they do it before the session is done and they support it, or that they sign on to this letter that would appropriate funds for us to really mitigate the issues of climate change, right, and that they have to do it by this date. This is the deadline. Summarize that with the ask, and then you got to follow up, right, and try to get a yes, try to get a commitment. Will you support us? Often I think sometimes we get to this place, we've done a really good job. We've had our meetings, we've shined, we've done our data, we've run through our bills, we have run through the numbers, and yet we find it hard to say, give us what we need. Practice. It's really important. And remember that this is why you're here. So make sure to make the ask. It's really important. Be understanding of the demands of the job, right? It could be quite a lot for staff and members to be in 500 different places at once. So if folks are sort of a little bit like not totally familiar with an issue area, that's okay. That's why you're there. And take seriously whomever you meet with. I have said purposefully staff members or chief of staff or legislative director or legislative aide, because sometimes the U.S. senator or assembly member or the member of Congress cannot be in the meeting because they're in a hearing, or maybe they're in committee meeting, or maybe they're at a press conference, or maybe they're meeting with the leadership, or they're in a caucus, right? Or they're XYZ. And I will tell you what you all already know. Staff do all the work. So it is really important that you value and take that meeting as seriously as you can, right? Just as if you were meeting with the legislator themselves. Why? Because the staff will be the ones who read through an issue area, read through your pamphlets, read through your folders with all your documents, and summarize for them, this is what I met with this group about today. This is what they're trying to do. This is what they're asking for. This is what it is. And I recommend a yes or no, or what do you think, or here's the other information that I got. So take those meetings seriously, whomever you are meeting with, right? It's really important. And you never know, really, sometimes who are those decision makers in the office. Sometimes, sure, it's a chief of staff, but sometimes it's a legislative aide who's been with them for 10, 20 years, or has a lot of experience and knows this area very well. You just never know, right? So take those meetings seriously. They're just as important. Have something written to present, right? So we've talked about your materials, right? Have a one-page synopsis. One-pagers make the world go round in government, right? It's very hard sometimes to go through whole reports and briefs. It's just we don't have the time, unfortunately. It can be really difficult. And whenever possible, district-specific data is always really crucial, right? Make it relevant to these offices, why they should be supporting your issue. So if you have district level data or information, right? I'll give you another example. Universal school meals, we prepared sheets for a lot of different state legislators, state reps, or state senators saying these many schools in your district would benefit from getting free breakfast and lunch. These many students, these many additional students would see free breakfast and lunch provided to them every year if you supported this budget ask, if you co-sponsored this bill, right? And honing in on one member's district, because again, going back to our first things first, electeds always want to be represented, right? Honing in on that and telling them, if you support this, your constituents will be happy, ergo, you're more electable. Those are the sorts of things that really help in moving forward an issue. So district-specific data, really important. Be clear and concise about your asks, right? Or about the issues, right? Sometimes we have 5 minutes, sometimes we have 10 minutes, sometimes we have 30, sometimes we have less. So elevator pitches, always really helpful. Help people really understand the issue in and out as quickly as they can. Sometimes it's been a really long day. Sometimes you're the 6th meeting, sometimes you're the 7th meeting, and people haven't eaten lunch, right? They have not caffeinated, they haven't hydrated like myself. And really helping folks to understand these issues as simply as possible is super helpful. And then don't assume that legislators know the lingo, right? We all love to use our acronyms and our abbreviations. Don't do that in these meetings. Speak at a basic level so that we're all following the issue very well. And then what is always very true is constituents are golden. If you can have constituents in a meeting or an organization that serves the district or works in the district or has some sort of impact in the district, those are the meetings that really help to push an issue forward. Because again, going back to what we said before, electeds always want to get reelected. Make it personal, right? Personal stories are always super helpful. That's what helps to really put the data and the different parts of it into perspective. If you don't know an issue, right, or an area, if they ask you a question, don't be afraid to say that you don't know, and you'll get them that information. You'll do a follow-up email, or maybe somebody else in the group knows the information. You'll send them a packet, and you will follow up with them. And then the follow-up should be very specific. Are you going to call them? Are you going to email them? Right? Is this going to be another meeting? Are you going to request a second meeting to talk about the things that they didn't understand? Right? And then how exactly do you expect them to follow up? Right? Are they going to email you back with a response? They're going to co-sponsor or not? They're going to fund this thing, this issue area or not? You know, be specific. Cool. So we're at the point where we have questions, but I do want to pause for just one moment because I need to drink water. So 1 second. Hey everyone. Okay, so I think this is the point where we are at questions. So please drop your questions in the chat and I'm happy to answer them for a few minutes. And then I gotta run because this stuff never ends. I hope this was helpful too. Flowing like water. Yes, great. Glad to hear it well. All right, I will give you all time to ask your questions, think about what came up for you, or maybe I just hit all the notes. I did that good and you all are just blown away. I do also want to make sure I take the time before I log off and conclude my time with you all to thank Louisa for holding an incredible space for all of us to understand this work more. It's been such a privilege. So I have one question or two. They're coming in now. From Will, what is your next goal job? You know, Will, I am deeply fortunate and privileged and lucky enough to do this work. I love this work. I've been doing it for 2 years plus. I am focused solely right now on being Chief of Staff and Legislative Director to Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas, and I'm trying to impart some of that knowledge to some of you all. I would love to go back to teaching, so I think in the fall I'll find myself back at a university teaching again because I do miss that work. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's see. Are you willing to share your one sheet on food insecurity? Sure, Julia. Why don't you send in your email? I'll take it down and I'm happy to send you the document that we've been working on. John Blasco, Carolina. I do know John Blasco. He's a good friend. We've known each other for years. He comes from nonprofit advocacy. I come from nonprofit advocacy. He's in government. I'm in government. He now went on to work for Representative Dan Goldman. So we worked well together. He's a good friend, Carolina. Thanks for your question. We have good friends in common. Is it ever disadvantageous to bring attention to proposed legislation that is of concern to the communities we serve? Someone has told me that sometimes bills are used as bait to engage the opposing party. Let me think about that, Aiden. Is it ever disadvantageous to bring attention to proposed legislation as a concern? So I will say this. Not all bills are good. Some pieces of legislation are harmful. So number one, it's important to understand the bills that you are pushing, but also what other pieces of legislation exist out there that are not helpful. Sometimes there are bills that have really good intentions. Sometimes legislators saw something, they think it's the best bill for this issue area, they put in the idea, or they're given the idea by someone, and it really is not as thought out as it could be. It does happen. Now, I don't believe that they do it on purpose, and then frankly, there are some legislators who do. And we need to understand those bills, and we need to create whole other campaigns and strategies to make sure that those campaigns don't advance. In terms of whether they're used as bait to engage the opposing party, sure, that could be a thing. You know, in the end, I want to separate politics from this. Meeting people's basic needs is certainly political. And I have no problem working with a member of the Republican Party. I have no problem working with an independent. I have no problem working with a group that I disagree with on another bill on a particular issue if we're all approaching this from the same place and space and understand that we are not going to compromise when it comes to meeting the basic needs of our people. So could it be used for bait sometimes? Sure. But I'm focused on delivering a real impact on people's lives. Let's see. A new advocate has been born. I love that, La Salle University. Thank you. Earlier, you mentioned leveraging popularity for deciding when it's best to pursue a policy goal. Do you think certain non-popular conversations can propel an issue into popularity? Yes, I do. I think, you know, politics is ever changing. It's a landscape that changes within the hour, it changes within the day. You know, I think, well, one, I think this, whether a bill or an issue is popular or not, if your community, right, LGBTQ communities, women, communities of color, communities impacted by the carceral system, communities that have been disadvantaged because of climate change, communities that have not seen the resources that they need, have approached you as social workers, as advocates, and said, hey, we've talked about this issue, and we think it's time to push it. It is your responsibility, right? It is our ethical principles and our mandates to do our best jobs to do that, to put forward campaigns that highlight directly impacted members as leaders that are going to drive these issues forward. A lot of these bills don't get done overnight or in a year. Sometimes they take 3, 4, 5, 10 years. They're just as valuable as the other fights. The popularity question is a matter of the politics that exist in the moment. For example, because of the increase we've seen on crime, the issue of public safety has become rather important, obviously, to Americans across and residents of this country across the nation. It could be a hard time to push for criminal justice reform, and it is always the right time to do the right thing, right? And so if a community has come to you and said, we want to push this, respond to the community. All right. How do you advocate for bills that are stagnant or stuck in committee? Good question. I think about this all the time. I was thinking about this with the bill. Who asked this question? Let me see. Ali, I hope I answered your name correctly. Understand why the bill is stuck. Is it the chairperson of that committee? Is it staff that staffs the committee that is stopping the bill? Is there somebody who is opposing your issue area, as we've talked about before, right? Maybe they're lobbying the chairperson of that committee to keep the bill from moving. That's okay. Make sure you get as many members of that committee to co-sponsor that bill or support that bill, so you could go to the chair and say, look, the majority of the members of this committee support my bill, support this issue. Why are you in the way? Why are you blocking this? What is the issue? Is it with language? Is it the number that we're looking for in terms of how much we're paying for, right? What is blocking your support? How do I get you to yes? Let me get to some of these other ones. In advocacy, how can you work better with members from different political views on issues? Understanding that basic needs are nonpartisan, right? So if they want to fight for healthcare, we're going to fight with them. Yes, I'm going to save your information, Anne-Marie, for this food insecurity thing. And then I see that somebody is joining us, so I don't want to take from somebody else's time.
No, Brian, thank you so much. We want to respect your time. So
awesome.
To everyone who's put comments in the chat, Louisa says we can pass those along to Brian.
Yes. And please follow me on Twitter. You can find me at Brian, BRIANR. And why I'm on Twitter, and we can chat there. You can shoot me a DM. I'm happy to be a resource to anyone. Thank you so much again to Louisa and to others for inviting me here today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Keep at it. It's what we do best as social workers. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Just reflecting on Brian's talk, I think it's just amazing that we have just this network of incredible advocates in social work that we can lean on to get involved and to also understand what we're doing whenever we want to get involved. So I want to invite Amani. She's a member of our senior leadership team, and we're going to explain what's going on this afternoon. So thank you all for joining us this morning. We've had a phenomenal series of speakers from Justin and Brian, and then everyone else we've heard from. So thank you all for joining us. For the afternoon, we're going to start with a networking session next. Amani, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I just want to thank Brian again for his amazing presentation. But yes, for the next hour, we're going to have kind of a working lunch and networking session. So for the first 30 minutes, myself and some other leadership team members will be holding our own networking rooms. So feel free to join those through the sessions tab if you would like to network with us. There's also a function for you to be able to do speed networking through the networking tab and be able to request individual meetings with other people who are joining the event today and do speed networking sessions with them as well. And I believe some questions for speed networking will be placed in the chat for you all to see. And then Taylor, I don't know if you want to go over some things for the rest of the day as well.
Yeah, I can do that. Let me get back on the main stage. All right, here I am. We have a series of breakout sessions this afternoon, and we're very excited for you all to join it. So we have 3 rounds. I'm going to explain the 3 rounds because we're about to break up from this large group, and we'll be on our way in individual breakout rooms. So first, I want to say, if you get lost in Hopin's our virtual platform. It can get confusing sometimes. If you get lost, we have an info booth. It's under the sessions tab, and it started early this morning whenever we kicked off. So if you ever get lost or confused about what's going on in the day, you can just drop into that session and we'll have somebody to direct you to where you should be. If you ever find yourself on the main stage, which is where we are now, we'll also have content going all afternoon. But again, our intention is that you can really enjoy and benefit from these breakout sessions that we have planned. So we'll be throughout the afternoon directing you to these breakout sessions. After our breakout sessions, we're going to come back to the main stage and have a closing session. We'll have another artist with some more spoken word, and we'll have some wrap-up discussions too. I also want to mention thanks to some of our generous donors and sponsors. For those of you who will be joining us in our closing session, we're going to do a random gift card giveaway of $100 to a few folks. And then also the winners of that $100 will have the opportunity for a one-on-one private meeting with Dr. Charles Lewis Jr., who's the director of CRISP. So stick around for the closing session. There's an opportunity for you to benefit with a gift card and for a meeting with Dr. Lewis. All right, so now let me break down the breakout sessions for this afternoon. Like Amani said, the next hour, we're going to have a working lunch. If you're on Pacific time like me, you're probably tired from an early morning and you can grab some food. If you're on the East Coast, you've probably already eaten lunch, but feel free to take a break too. But we're intending for this next hour to be dedicated to networking. We have a series of networking breakout sessions with our senior leadership team that you can pop into and meet them and meet some other folks in a group style networking session. You can also take advantage of our speed networking option, which you click on the networking tab and click on that you want to do the speed networking, and you'll have the opportunity just to meet multiple people and you can connect that way too. I also want to point out that we have a series of expo booths. If you just click on the expo tab on Hopin, you can check out all of our sponsors and our expo booths. We have some content there to get you connected to them too. All right, so the breakout sessions, our first round is called the advocacy breakout session. It's going to be a guided facilitation with a national renowned speaker. And we're going to have a facilitator walk through how to connect what you've learned this morning to your own practice, your own education. Our focus is on communicating how you might do advocacy in your own work. And you'll have the opportunity to have a small group discussion with one of these speakers. That's our first round of breakout sessions. Our second round of breakout sessions are what we call social policy lectures. And it'll be a presentation, again, from a nationally renowned social work scholar on a topic in advocacy of their choice. And I would really encourage you to check out their bios and see which speaker you want to see. And then our last round of breakout sessions are what we call office hours. We intend for these to be small, intimate groups where you can join a group of 10 or 12 other students and have a really personal meeting with someone who is directly involved with advocacy work at the local, state, and even federal levels. Many of our office hour presenters have Hill experience too. So this would be an opportunity not just to network and learn, but also to practice some of the skills that you've learned today. All right, so that's our 3 breakout sessions. We're going to go into our networking hour. And again, if you have any questions or if you're lost, join us in our info booth.
Hi, I know you all are looking forward to Student Advocacy Day, where we will gather online this time in the virtual space to engage our government and to learn more about how to be a better advocate for your issue. So I have for you now 10 tips, very common sense things that you should do and that you should be aware of when you go into the meeting that will make your meeting more successful. First tip is don't show up on time. Show up early. That's right, get there early. Better that you wait on them than they wait on you. And if you get there early, it will give you time to collect your thoughts, to get ready mentally for your meeting. Second tip is choose a key spokesperson. So if you're going with a group of people, someone should be the lead spokesperson who will kind of manage the meeting for everyone. But give everybody an opportunity to speak and say something, but there should be somebody that is managing the group. The third tip is do your homework. Before you go into the office, learn more about the congressperson and that district. Learn what committees the congressperson is assigned to, because you know what is important to them. Research the legislation that they have introduced in the recent Congresses. The fourth tip is be familiar with the legislation. So if you're going into an office to advocate for legislation, you should know what that legislation is about. Spend the adequate time, ask questions if you need to, but you should be familiar with the legislation. The fifth tip is speak up. All right, don't go in timid and shy, even though you are. You fake it until you can make it, but go in with a confident attitude. So you need to be prepared before you go in. Remember, the people that you will be meeting with are working for you. They are working for the American people. And sometimes we get intimidated by the congressional offices, but you could very well be in one of those offices one day. The next tip is listen. Although you're there to advocate and to present your case, give that Hill staffer an opportunity to respond to some of the things that you're saying. Just don't ramble on, pause and ask if he is clear about what you're saying, and give that staffer a chance to speak and listen to what he is or she is saying, because sometimes we are so busy trying to gear up for the next statement, then we're not even listening to what is being said. The next tip is to know your ask. That is, what is it that you want? Why are you advocating? Are you advocating because you want some changes in the bill? Are you advocating because you want that congressperson's or that Congress member's office to sign on to the bill? So know what you're asking for and bring a handout. Bring a handout so that you leave the Hill staffer with enough information to know why you were there. Because don't count on the Hill staffer taking notes. Sometimes they will, but sometimes they won't. So to be sure that the Hill staffer has the information, bring a handout. And the next tip is don't overreact. Meaning, if the Hill staffer is in a bad mood, don't get, excited about it. If the Hill staffer wants to be your friend, don't get excited about that either. Just keep a calm, cool, and consistent frame of mind. Don't get too excited if the Hill staffer seems to be real friendly, because sometimes they just do that so they can get rid of you quicker, and they may not even be listening. But don't get upset if the Hill staffer is cranky. There could be a lot going on in the office that day. Just stay calm. And finally, my last tip is to remember this. There are no losers. You cannot lose in this. You go and you give your best effort. You are prepared. You make your ask. You are thankful. And always follow up with a thank you email or a thank you note. And just remember, just by going into the office and having that meeting, you are a winner.
Hello, everyone. We are just getting set up here. We're going to start our closing session in just a moment. I hope that everyone's wrapping up their office hours and coming back to the main stage. Speaking of that, would someone on our team throw that in our chat for the whole event so we can remind anyone who's hanging out to come on back? All right. Thank you all for joining us. We've had an excellent day full of really incredible speakers, very thought-provoking and insightful strategy and education and tools to equip us to advocate and to become social work advocates. We just want to remind everyone that advocacy is within your reach. And I hope that one of the takeaways from today is that you feel that advocacy is within your reach and that you have some more tools to do that with. So I want to invite our senior leadership team up onto the main stage with me. And we're going to have a panel before we start wrapping up. Hello, everyone. I think that's almost everyone. We still have some people coming on. Okay, I think that's everyone, right? All right, so we're going to do 15-second introductions around the clock, and we'll get started with some questions. Oh, We're missing one of our team members, but we hope that she can join in a second. So we'll get started. Louisa, can you introduce yourself again?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Luisa Lopez. I serve in my day job. I serve as president of the Latino Social Work Coalition. But for CRISP, I served as a consultant for the organization and to help put together Student Advocacy Day. So it's great to see everybody.
Thanks, Louisa. Who's next? Nevo?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Nevo. I use he, him, his pronouns. And in my day job, I work for the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare, doing some health and IT related policy and process work as a presidential management fellow. So if anyone's interested in that, feel free to DM me or email me. And I supported the programming and evaluation for today's event.
Awesome. Who wants to go next? Amani?
Yeah, I can go. Hello, everyone. My name is Amani. I'm currently in my day job working with the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids in their federal advocacy department. I also graduated from Howard University with my MSW, and I'm happy to be part of the leadership team.
All right, Allison?
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Garibay. I am an advanced standing student at Columbia University, emphasis in policy, and I graduated from CSU Fresno with a bachelor's in social work. And I had the honor of serving on the senior leadership team this year, and I also serve as a graduate intern with CRISP.
Thanks, Allison. I think the camera zoomed in on me, but we were going to move on to Grace. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So my name is Grace Nielsen. I'm currently finishing up my BSW at the University of Missouri in Columbia. I start my MSW at WashU in the fall. In terms of my day job, you can say I'm a lobbyist for higher education policy in the Missouri State Legislature, but I also work at a domestic violence shelter in our town. On the team, I served as leading all of the social media efforts, as well as getting you all here for registration, along with Amani.
Thanks, Grace. Okay. Who hasn't gone yet? My camera. Ava, have you gone?
I can go. Hi, I'm Ava. I am a second year or my final year of my MSW at Howard University. And I'm also an intern with the Congressional Research Institute for Social Work and Policy as my field placement. So I get to work with Chris every day, not just with the senior leadership team, but I'm very grateful to have been able to work with these amazing other social workers from around the country to put on this event for today.
Excellent. And then lastly, Marissa, can you give us like a 15-second introduction?
Hi, I'm Marissa Rodriguez Gomes. I'm currently in New Jersey, got my master's in social work at Columbia. I am transitioning into a role for Department of Public Health with the city of Irvington. So I will be the community social worker working with HIV, senior citizens, and lead poisoning, but also like helping like the youth and like educating people on their human rights and civil liberties. So it's a little bit about me.
Awesome.
And yeah, love CRISP's Advocacy Day.
Yeah, I do too. And I think everyone on this panel would agree. So just in the few minutes we have left today, we're going to have some closing sessions from Dr. Lewis, and we're going to have another artist deliver a closing spoken word. But I wanted to just synthesize our day and get all of your input. So I wanted to go around the circle and just ask, what's one of your biggest takeaways from Student Advocacy Day 2023? And who wants to start? You can just go for it.
I can start. One of my biggest takeaways from today is that to work in government, you don't have to go to DC. We've heard from a lot of speakers that the most important way to get involved is to just start where you're at. And whether that's through city council, whether that's serving in a local campaign, or whether that's working in the state government, you all have the skills to make a difference wherever you're at. And your clinical skills, if you are a micro social worker, can translate into macro social work and vice versa. Because at the end of the day, social work is about advocating for our clients and for our communities and for ourselves.
I think for me, sorry, our session went over. It was such a powerful talk, which is why I was a little late. But I think even coming from speaking with our Hill staffer, but also like other people on the call and other speakers, that there is power in healing in community, and especially in a diverse community that's intergenerational, interracial, like multiple genders, like what have you. Like I think it's like there's such power in networking and community that is like I think in any other profession, like it doesn't make as big of an impact as it does for social workers.
I think what I got from today and all the sessions is that social workers belong in policy and belong in government. And we really do have that heart and that drive behind what we do in social work to make that change in policy. And I think that's why we're all here today. And it's been amazing to hear from the speakers and from students, similar from my point of view. And getting to make those connections has been once in a lifetime opportunity.
From the sessions that I was able to attend and listen in on, I think something that was a thread through all of them was to really think about how the personal is political and to not see macro social work as so far removed from what we consider direct practice, micro social work, but that policy is a direct way of influencing and impacting people's lives and informs practice, informs programming, and that we as social workers are also people living in this society who are advocating maybe for our own personal reasons, and to just keep that in mind gives us a lot of passion behind our advocacy work that we do as social workers, but really also just as people.
My main takeaway from today is that even if being in a political position, even if running for office seems overwhelming, there's so many resources, there's so many people that are interested and excited in helping support us in that, and that we need more social workers in office. And it's a lot more attainable than I originally thought it was. And I've gone to this conference multiple times. And it's always just a lovely reminder how feasible it is to get more involved, to seek some sort of elected position or some other leadership role in your community that has an important part in impacting policy.
My main, no, go ahead, Amani, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think my main takeaway is that the future of social work and advocacy work is very bright. It was so amazing to see how many students and how many people are so interested in getting involved with political social work and advocacy work. And like Nova was saying, we really need social workers at the forefront of a lot of these issues and amplifying voices of communities. And it's so amazing to see how many people are willing to do the work and ready to do the work as well. So.
My main takeaway is exactly what Amani just said. The future of social work is incredibly bright. There were some incredible powerhouses in this conference today. And really the importance of coalition building, of relationship building, of knowing who your elected officials are, knowing how to contact them, and really not being afraid of getting in the mix and making a statement and coming up with solutions and working with folks is really, really important for this kind of work. So just from what I saw today and from the other conferences that I've been to this conference several times now, but my takeaway is always the same. The future of social work and the future of social work advocacy and macro social work and political social work is incredibly bright. Just from this leadership panel and just from everything that I saw from everybody that attended today.
Thanks. For everyone watching, this team has been just like amazing. We've been planning this for nearly a year now, and it's been a blast. And I just can't thank all of them enough. I would give them all the honor, all the thanks that I could possibly give. So we're about to transition to Dr. Lewis is going to hand off this conference to next year's conference. But before we do that, We have a few minutes. Our theme this year is advocacy within reach. I'm curious to know how our senior leadership team thinks about advocacy being within reach. And so we're going to very quickly go around again. And I want to know what you think about advocacy being within reach. Do you think advocacy is within reach, your reach? And like how is advocacy in reach for our guests today? All right, I'm going to pick on people so that we can go start to move fast. So Grace, do you want to go first?
Sure. For advocacy within reach, I think one important thing to think about is the community that you found here today, and the personal connections that you have within this. Not only are you a great advocate, but the rest of the people here are as well. And so take advantage of them. If you're not an expert in a certain field, but I know like Louisa is, I'm going to call her up and build that team and build that coalition around you, because we know that as advocates, we're so much more powerful when we work together.
That was awesome, especially because you're answering it on the spot. So who wants to go next? How about Ava?
Yeah, I guess my answer would be kind of building off my answer to the first question. Look around you, look who's in your community, look at what they're doing. I know I'm in DC, so I have that close proximity to the Hill, but also just your proximity to other people who are doing work wherever you are. There's someone who is making change. There's someone who is looking for people to support them. And so you don't have to be in DC. You don't have to, be right at a politician's door. There are people who are making change, who are, advocating within your reach. And I think looking at your community is the first place to start.
Thank you. Louisa, I saw you came off mute. Do you want to go next?
Oh, I didn't even realize I did that. Yeah, sure. But similar to what Ava just said, look around your community, and not just to the people that are doing work in your community, but look at the issues in your community. I don't think anybody on this call today is a billionaire that lives so separated from people that you don't see issues that could benefit from your advocacy, from your passion, and from your interest in trying to solve problems. So just look around and find the one thing that really moves you, and start your advocacy there. Write letters, go on social media, start a petition. There's so much that you can do literally at your fingertips. You don't have to go to the State House. You don't have to go to Albany. You don't have to go to DC to do any of these things. Just start, look around, and start where you are.
Incredible. Okay, Allison.
While in my sessions, I was able to connect with a few of the people that come from small rural areas where I'm at. I'm based in California in a small farming town. And I always thought that that was going to be a roadblock. But in fact, it is a strength of mine because I'm able to make connections with the people that are out there. And then I'm able to tell their stories. And that's how I see social work within reach, because I'm able to be there, be with the people, and then tell their story and make sure that their voices are heard.
Thank you. Marissa?
Yeah, I think, if you don't know where to start, I would say find a mentor. Find a mentor who can help you and inform you on the issues going about in your community. Join nonprofit organizations or associations. It's all about being social and networking and getting yourself out there to really know, like, hey, this is an issue I'm having, and like 2-3 of my neighbors also have the same issue. This is an issue we can work on together, and also like get to know your neighbors. It's a lost art of networking and having connection. I think even after the pandemic, like we've been so isolated. So I think just like finding mentorship, finding community where you're at, and if there's a shared collective experience, start there.
Excellent. Nevo?
Yeah, when I think about advocacy within reach, I want to build off what everyone else was saying. And I think we're all ready, and everyone watching now, you're ready too. There are things you can do. It won't be perfect. You will learn, you will make mistakes, but go to a city council meeting and listen in, and you will see that some ideas that other folks have are ideas that either you could have thought of or you have thought of and you've thought of it better. So dive in, start participating. Advocacy is within reach. And I think we all are ready to participate, even if it feels overwhelming.
Thanks, Nevo. All right, Amani, you're last.
no pressure at all. But I think that it's just something that I've learned, and something that's important to keep in mind is that you have so much more power and reach than you realize. Similar to what everyone else was saying, showing up to rallies, showing up to city council meetings, writing letters, writing petitions, it all makes so much more of an impact than we realize sometimes. So it really just starts by showing up, and advocacy is truly within reach that way.
Thank you all for your service and for being a part of this panel. We're going to transition now. Dr. Lewis is going to come on, and we're going to say bye to all of our senior leadership team except for Amani, who's going to stay on for a second. Thanks, everyone. Dr. Lewis, hello. How are you?
How has it been, Taylor? I mean, I know it's been a full day.
I am exhausted, but I think it's gone really well. All of the sessions throughout the day were really good. I've been impressed by all of our speakers and all of our attendees.
Good.
It's just been incredible. So I'm going to go off camera, and my plan was for you to introduce Amani for next year, and then we're going to go into our spoken word to close, and then we'll come back on stage to wrap things up.
Okay.
All right.
Well. Amani.
Hi, Dr. Lewis.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. It was an amazing day.
Yeah. And it was, you graduated in December, and so technically, you didn't have to do anything, but you stuck with it, and it's been a lot of work, I imagine.
Just a little bit. Not too.
Well, how do you feel about how it went this year?
I think it was amazing. I mean, one of the reasons I came back is that it's always so fun seeing all these social work students and professionals be able to come together and share all of their experiences. And every year I feel like from the past 2 years that I've done it, it just gets better and better every time with the people that we get to hear from. And just being able to see the students have a great time, it's really inspiring for me. So I love this, and I'm excited to come back again.
So you think you can make it better next year?
Well, that's going to be my goal. We're just going to keep building on it every year.
Well, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Chris and the board, and as our next lead organizer for the 2024 Student Advocacy Day.
Thank you.
So now you take over the mantle right away. So we're going to start working on this right away because we want it to be the best that it can be.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we'll get a little bit of a break, but we'll start.
A little bit of a break, but we'll start thinking about it at least. And, long range planning. We'll do, we'll do some debriefing and find out what we learned this year. We learned some things every year that we've done it this way. And now I'm going to tell you now, next year is going to be a challenge because we expect to be back on the Hill, but we're also going to do a virtual portion of the event for those students who are not able to get to DC. We've got some other ideas that we're going to share, but so it's going to be an interesting experience. And I know you can do it for sure.
Well, I'm extremely excited about it. So thank you for inviting me to lead it next year. I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited to have some of our other leadership team members back as well, hopefully. So hopefully it'll be really good. So thank you.
Yeah. So it's official that you're the next lead organizer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lewis. Thank you, everyone.
We're going to turn it back over to Taylor so he can bring on our next performance.
Absolutely. And I can go ahead and transition to our next performance.
Oh, okay. That's right. Take over right now.
So coming out next, we have Taylor Johnson, who's an artist, performer, educator, and founder of Sisterhood Inc., a published poet. She has been writing and performing her poetry in plays for over 10 years. She is committed to using art to voice unspoken truths and guides people to discover and speak their truth to define their liberation. At Mount Holyoke College, where Taylor received her bachelor's degree in psychology, she began the journey of defining sisterhood and its importance in her life. Pursuing her master's degree at the Center for Experimental Humanities at New York University allowed her to expand on the intersectionality of community and arts, integration, and education, which led to Sisterhood Inc. Taylor's experience in community building, advocacy, social justice, and spiritual healing further feeds her mission to find new ways poetry can empower the underrepresented, soothe the wounded, and disturb the status quo, setting us all on a path to freedom. So please, everyone, welcome Taylor Johnson.
This one is for my sisters. From the moment my eyebrows wrinkle, when a question lays across my face with leisure, when the dark arts of a world out of sync begin to suffocate me, they are there to quake me to life again, remind me who I am, with eyes that see and a heart that knows. Even when I don't, I get a prayer from across the world. A laugh over coffee and tea, a weary text after hiatus, the silent wars we are fighting, hiding from our faces. Life keeps going for all my sisters, and I just want y'all to know, you're doing amazing. Being brought to your knees, but up on your feet. From the battle wounds we have to nurse in the morning to the sweet honey we get to taste in the evening. You have had grace throughout it all. This one is for you. Let us toast to having the audacity to speak fluently in abundance, peace, love, pleasure, adventure. This one is for my sisters who dance with embers and play with fire in a burning world that expects us to give up when we're tired. But little do they know, we're just getting started.
That was amazing, and it ends an amazing day. In just a moment, I'm going to bring Dr. Lewis back on stage to close us out, but I want to wrap things up before he gets some closing thoughts. So we have an evaluation that we would love all of you to fill out that can help inform our work next year and for the years forward. One of our team members will post that link in the chat, and we'll also send it out in a follow-up email. One other thing, at the beginning of the day, I mentioned that we had a generous, because of our generous sponsors, we were able to do like a random raffle for $100 gift cards to some folks who stuck around for our welcome or our closing session. So we're still planning to do that. And then the people who are randomly selected will also have the opportunity, if you want to have a one-on-one meeting with Dr. Lewis, which I would definitely take advantage of. Dr. Lewis is an incredible mentor, an amazing man, and social worker. So I want to introduce Dr. Lewis so he can wrap us up and close us out. I want to thank everyone again for attending our conference this year. And again, I want to remind you that advocacy is within reach, and I hope that you feel equipped to take advantage of that. All right, Dr. Lewis, can you wrap us up?
So I hope that you all had a wonderful day. It's been a long day, so I'm not going to end the day with a long speech. Okay, I'm just going to say, I hope that you learned something that's going to impact your life and your ability to be an advocate for yourself as well as for causes that you think are important. So I just want to thank everyone for hanging in there, and it's been a lot of work. These young people put in a lot of work to get this to happen. And so we look forward to continuing this work. And, we're not going to end today. So make sure that you stay abreast of the things that we're doing. Visit our website at crispinc.org. And I have to acknowledge a few sponsors. Certainly the Center for Social Development, who has been a continuous sponsor and supporter of what we do, and the University of Washington, Dr. Eddie Uhura, who's the dean there, and I got to mention Michael Sherrod at WashU, who has been our supporter, and of course the national organizations, the Council on Social Work Education, the National Association of Social Workers, and the Association of Social Work Boards, and the Columbia University School of Social Work, where I graduated in 2002. So that's it, Taylor. I want to applaud you for the job you've done as lead organizer and setting the pace for going forward.